Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the CEO of the Crust Pizza Company, Comeaux. Carl, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Frank. How about yourself, man?
Great to finally have you on the show.
I know, good. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, we're going to talk about pizza, one of my favorite subjects.
Right? Same here, man. Love pizza.
Yeah, who doesn't? All right, so tell us all about Crust Pizza. When did the company start?
Yeah, so company started in 2011, and then we started franchising in 2018.
All right, so I understand it was started by Mark Raspberry, right, and Clinton Price.
Yeah.
They were childhood friends of yours?
Not of mine, of themselves. So they grew up in Katy, Texas, and they went to elementary together all the way through college. They went to Stephen F. Austin. And then after college, they went their separate ways. Mark went into the mortgage business in Dallas, and then Clint went into software sales. Clint also managed a couple of pizza restaurants through that time, and then they reconnected. Mark ended up selling out of his mortgage business in 2009, perfect timing, right before the crash, and then reconnected with Clint and said, hey, we always talked about doing a pizza restaurant, let's do it. And then they actually were planning to do it in North Carolina. They actually had a lease that they were going to sign. It fell through, and some buddies from Katy, Texas said, hey, man, you got to come check out the Woodlands. The Woodlands is a prime market for business. And they went check it out, and then they ended up signing up a LOI at Panther Creek and did a lease, and then that was their first location in 2011.
Wow. So they didn't have any food service experience, or let alone pizza experience when they started out, huh?
Just Clint. Clint, had managed a couple of pizza restaurants, but Clint, Mark had no experience in restaurant or pizza business. And so he took a risk, but it's paid off.
So when they started in this thing in 2011, I know you came aboard in 2018. They found you?
Yeah.
You found them?
Yeah, so I found them in 2016 as a customer. So I moved my family from Katy, Texas to the Woodlands, and the family wanted pizza. We were moving into our new house, and I looked up on Google like everybody else and found Crust Pizza had the top rating, and I called them to get a couple of pies. And we fell in love with it. We were like, oh, this is really good pizza. And then we found out that you could dine in. So I brought my family a week later to the Panther Creek location, the first location. And what was great about it was when I walked in, the ambiance, the feel. It's definitely not a hole-in-the-wall pizza joint, but it's not real stuffy either. It has the open industrial ceilings, the warm colors, the brick finishes. And I liked it was limited service where you ordered the counter and then you sit down with the table number. They bring you your food, and then after you're done, they will they'll bust the table for you. So I was like, this is cool. This isn't fast casual where they're hollering your name for the food, but it's also not full service. It's in the middle. So, and then also they had a playground area for the kids to play. So at the time I had 3 young kids, all, toddler stage. So they were playing, and I was able to catch up with my wife over a glass of wine. And I was like, man, I wonder if they're franchising this. And come to find out, they only had 3 locations at the time, and they weren't franchising. And so we became a frequent flyer of Crust, where we were going once a week. On Friday nights was our time to go. And probably fast forward a couple months, I ended up meeting Mark and Clint. At that time, I was scaling another concept in franchise. It was a juice and smoothie concept. So I had already had experience in scaling in the whole franchise game. And so I ended up meeting them. I met Mark at one of our Friday nights, and then I said, hey, look, I would love to have lunch with you. So we ended up having lunch, and they wanted to grow, but they just knew how to grow one at a time. They really didn't know how to take a concept, put systems and processes in place to be able to scale it. And that's where I came into the picture. And so I just as a friend, I helped guide them on next steps to franchise. And so they started working those steps. Fast forward to 2018, I told my wife we had just finished remodeling the house in the Woodlands, and I told her, I said, it's time to move back home to Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is where my wife and I met. We went to McNeese State University, go Pokes. Hey, we made it to the NCAA basketball tournament 2 years in a row.
Nice.
Went to the second round, beat Clemson. How about that? It's just incredible. But
by the way, I'm still grieving. I went to St. John's, and
okay.
I'm grieving over the loss in the second round to Arkansas.
Right.
So
I know
it's going to take me a while to get over that.
I know that's tough, right? I know it was crazy. You just never know what's going to happen in that tournament. But anyway, going back to pizza. So I went to Mark and Clint and I said, hey, look, I would love to take Crust and bring it to Lake Charles, Louisiana. They looked at the demographics and they were like, heck no, we would never do that. The demographics is nowhere as close to the Woodlands. But I told them, I said, you don't understand. Like, I opened up a fitness concept here, a cell phone repair concept, a juice and smoothie concept. And I said, I'm telling you, even though it doesn't look good on paper, it would be a really good market to enter. And so they said no. So my business partner, Nick Fontenot, that I've been with for over almost half my life now in business, and the juice and smoothie concept, I told him, I said, hey, look, let's start a pizza concept. That's the only thing I'm going to miss about the Woodlands. And so we ended up trademarking Rush Pizza, and we worked on it for 9 months after Clint and Mark told me no. We spent $150,000 on, because if we do anything, if Nick and I does anything, we're going to do it right. We're not going to just open it up, we're going to go all in and make sure that it feels like a well-groomed business. Sure. And so we're going to sign a lease for Rush Pizza. And on a Friday, 2 days before, on a Wednesday, I get a call from Clint. Mind you, I hadn't talked to Clint and Mark in 9 months since they had told me no. And they said, congratulations, I saw you guys sold out of the juice concept. What are y'all doing now? And I said, it's funny you asked. We're fixing to sign a lease for Rush Pizza. And he's like, what? He's like, no, man, we changed our mind, right? We changed our mind. And I'm like, of course you did. We already spent all this money, and we learned a lot through that process of the pizza industry. And we knew at the time, Crust, especially after doing all that research on Rush, I knew that some things that had to change for Crust to scale it. Wow. And so I learned quite a bit through that process. The first thing I learned was you don't need 60 plus menu items to make it. So we condensed that down to 35. We went from 5 different pizza sizes down to 2 with a kid size. And what that did was it allowed us to have a whole lot less pizza boxes in our restaurants. So less SKUs to worry about, less ingredients. We went from 10 pastas down to the top 4. I learned with their current menu with a few locations open that all 3 locations had the same top sellers in pasta, salad, pizza, every category. So then that's how we're able to condense it down to 35 items. And then we opened up Lake Charles, and we became the #1 store within 6 months. And our profit margins were incredible. Everything was just off the charts. And so then we took that model that we condensed, and then we started scaling it. And I'll be honest, like whenever we went to the landlord of Lake Charles and said, we're thinking about changing our name, he was like, no, you don't need those guys, just do Rush Pizza. And I said, you don't understand. Like Crust Pizza, I knew it was special. I knew not only the product, but the ambiance, the feel, just the whole package. And so we had to convince the landlord to go drive to Houston from Lake Charles, about 2.5 hour drive. He met Mark and Clint. He fell in love with the concept and said, hey, I'll give you guys 8 weeks. And then we were able to work a deal between the founders and Nick and I to partner up with them. And we're all actively involved with the company, all 4 of us. And so, of course, I'm the CEO, and then Nick is the CTO. So he has the tech leg. He built the entire development side of the software to franchise. So everything from sales to ongoing support, we have our own portal software that manages that whole process. And
Mm-hmm.
then now we're fixing to launch our customer facing point of sale with app loyalty gift card internal instead of a third party. So we're super excited about that. And then Clint is over construction and architect phase for new stores. We're opening 10 new this year. And so we already opened up 2. And so we got 8 left this year to open. And then Mark is overall legal and finance. So he takes care of all the red tape that I can't stand. So it works out. We have a good partnership.
That is a great partnership. Carl, there are so many emerging founders that can't get out of their own way, or they're afraid to make that big hire, to hire a president or CEO for their company, even though they know that's where they need to go next. I'd love for you to share, if you kind of go back in time for when you started with those guys, right, in 2018.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the transition as they brought somebody into their home, being you, right? They were the founders and they brought you in, and I'm sure they respected you because of your franchise experience, but at the same time, they were kind of relinquishing a little bit of control. And I'd love to kind of hear about that transition on how you helped make that all happen and how smoothly it went.
Yeah, it went really smooth. You know, they took a big risk on me. They, of course, saw my portfolio and my history. So they saw what I had already created and what I accomplished. So that definitely helped them make that decision. But yes, it definitely was a transition. We ended up adding EOS, Entrepreneur Operating Systems. We added that process to help organize the entire business, to make sure that we have an org chart and we have processes and systems in place, and everybody knows their role and responsibilities, which I think is really important. Oftentimes when the CEO comes on board, there's what is the CEO supposed to do versus the founders? Like what's the roles? How do they jive? I think oftentimes there's probably they don't have transparency there. And we created that transparency really quick. And we did a lot of personality tests. So that way I could identify what each person already knew what Nick's strengths and weaknesses were, but I needed to know what the founder's strengths and weaknesses were. So that way we could make sure we're in the right seat. Because big in EOS is the right person in the right seat. The right seat is, do you get it? Do you want it? And do you have the capacity to do the job? And so we just identified all those things, and it made for a smooth process. And I'll be honest, like the founders, usually founders, a lot of them will like, I got to keep a thumb on everything. I'm almost like a manager. And they really did take a seat back and they really let me take charge, and it's benefited them because we've seen incredible growth over the last few years. Of course, COVID, definitely we hit a few bumps in the road through COVID, but everybody did. It wasn't just us, but we made it out stronger. And now we're sitting in a good place. We're starting to get these multi-unit franchisees that are interested in us and buying territories. And so that's good. But I just sat on a panel at the Restaurant and Bar conference that happened last month, and we talked about franchising for new restaurants. And I was at the front door as everybody was entering to listen to this panel, and I introduced myself and I asked them, how many restaurants do you have? Because I wanted to know my audience before I talked to them. I want to know, like, or does most of these people have 10 stores, corporate stores, or do they have 2? And most of them had 2 to 3 corporate locations, and they were looking at franchising. And I'll be honest with you, my conversation to them was like, the restaurant business really well, but the franchise business is a totally different business. Like running a restaurant and running a franchise, it's like, it's totally different skill levels, etc. And so I definitely talked to that group, and I said, look, like, you're good at managing your restaurants. I'm good at franchising. And so, you need to learn franchising, or you have to hire a CEO or a VP of ops that understands franchising at an emerging level that could come and help you with those processes and systems. So that way you do it the right way. Because, man, I see all the time that you get these founders that have 2 or 3 restaurants, and they think, okay, the quickest buck is going to be franchising. Well, it's not true. It's not true, man. It's expensive to do it right. Like if you're going to do it right, you need 250 to 300,000 a year. And the way we did it was we took corporate stores that were making really good money, and we were able to fuel the franchise from those profits. If you don't have that, then where do you get the money? I guess you could get it from friends and family. Bank's not going to give it to you. So it's tricky. But to wrap that up, I mean, you definitely need to have either a consultant or someone that understands franchising if you are a founder of 1 to 2 restaurants wanting to make that leap to franchise.
Sure. Carl, how many company-owned locations did you guys have before franchise? I know you said they had 3 before you started, right? And then did you guys open up any more company-owned locations before you guys launched franchising?
We had 2 locations that we had open and operating. And we had already started 1 franchise, but as far as like, I said, look, in order to franchise, like we need all these things in place, and it's not free. So we need to open up another corporate store. So we had 2 stores that we had open operating that we were pulling profits from.
Okay. And so where are we now? How many franchise-owned locations do we have?
Franchise, we have 26 franchise locations, and then the rest are corporate stores, which are 7, fixing to be 8. We're fixing to open up an 8th corporate store in the next month and a half.
Okay, and you guys are in 2 states, right? Texas and Louisiana.
Texas and Louisiana. Look, the beautiful thing is, everybody says everything's bigger in Texas, and it's really true. I mean, we could do 150 stores in Texas. I mean, between Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Houston is pretty much sold out. We have 4 or 5 territories left, which is going to be sold in the next couple months. And so, yeah, I mean, just Texas. I mean, it's just, we could do so many. And that's another strategy that that's important to me, is keeping our stores clustered together close. We have leads that come in that want to open up in Colorado and Jersey and all these different places, and I'm turning them down. Like our focus is Texas, Louisiana. I want to be known in the Southeast, eventually get to 250 locations in the next 9 years. And we'll always know the first 100 is the hardest to get to. And then the next 150 will be half the time, because you'll have proven your concept. And so we're looking at Florida. We're looking at a couple territories in Florida. Atlanta is a big area that we're most likely going to get 2 investors to come in here soon. But yeah, we're going to grow within the Southeast, from Texas to Florida up to Carolinas, across Tennessee, Arkansas. We want to be a household name in those states.
And is the development schedule, or I should say this development strategy, strictly multi-unit, or are you open to single unit operators?
I love single unit operators. The main reason I love them is usually they come from corporate America, where they're making 100 to 250,000 a year, and they're sick and tired of working 65 hours for someone else. And so they usually have management's background. And what I love about them is they could come in and work 60, 65 hours a week as an owner operator at a store and absolutely crush it. They usually have a savings with a 401k that they usually have to put as a down payment, and they're our best franchisees. Now, I'll say multi-unit are also incredible, because they usually come with a management background, or they have a management team in place, and they get it. And so so we're open to them too. But we know that until we get to 50 stores open, we're going to continue having a lot of these single unit operators. But I'll tell you this, a lot of the single unit operators are opening up their 2nd and 3rd location right now. So that says something.
What's the investment range to open one location?
Investment range, you're all in around Texas, Houston. Let's just say Houston, 750 to 800,000 all in. That includes operating capital, and that's after you receive your tenant improvement from the landlord, which is usually about 100 to 150,000.
Okay, and how far away do you try to keep the locations from each other?
So we like to be a local pizzeria we like the suburbs. Like, that's our bread and butter. And so in the suburbs, it depends on the density, but usually it's a 2-mile radius, which means 2 miles from north, south, east, and west of that location is the territory.
All right. And so the person that you think kind of will thrive in this franchise system is somebody who is coming from a management background, typically is, leaving their job and doesn't want to work for the man anymore, wants to own their own business. And that's your primary person, sounds like.
Yeah, that's primary person. We love those operators, and we're excited for them because they're making really good money, and they're opening their second, third location. It's just incredible. They went from being burned out to being excited about the future.
That's great. So comparing in your prior life, it was smoothies, right? I think you said.
Yeah, juice smoothies and
juice
bowls.
Smoothies.
Yeah.
What has been different with in the pizza business? Has been anything that has surprised you in this industry?
Everybody loves pizza, Frank. Not everybody loves juice smoothies and bowls, man, and healthy food. It's funny, right. I come from the fitness background where only 10% of people want to work out. You have to beg them. You have to spend so much money on them to come see you.
Yeah.
And then juice and smoothies was real similar to the fitness industry where, like you had to entice them with, hey, look, before and after pictures. Hey, drink this smoothie and juices and you'll lose weight, right? Like in pizza, you don't have to spend so much money on advertising. It's so nice. Like everybody already loves pizza. 90% of people eat pizza at least once a month. Everybody from kids to grandparents love it. And so it's just a great cuisine that everybody loves. And usually you share it whenever you go eat pizza, either at home or dine in. You're usually sharing a couple large pizzas and catching up with friends or family. So it's a good memory from childhood that just continues through adulthood to as you get older. So it's one of those things. I look at the different industries that have come and gone. Some are fads and others aren't. And pizza's not that fad. Like pizza's been around for 100 years. It's not going anywhere, which I love pizza. It's yeah,
I'm
it's
right
incredible.
there with you.
Yeah.
Carl, you've heard the old saying that business is made up of really only two things, right? Innovation and marketing.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to kind of get your take on how do you make pizza innovative? What do you think you guys have done that's different in an industry that's, as old as time?
Great question. So whenever I tried crust for the first time as a customer, I knew it was different because first we're named crust, so we better have a good crust. But every good, pizza, there's three ingredients that have to be spot on. It's the crust, which we make our dough fresh every day. It's the sauce, which we have our own seasoned blend that we mix with our pizza sauce. And it has a really good bite to it. And it's the cheese. And just mozzarella cheese alone, last year we did close to 900,000 pounds of just mozzarella cheese. And so we ended up creating our own proprietary blend. We went to our mozzarella manufacturer and we took the cheese which we had an amazing cheese before, but since we were doing so much volume, we were able to get a contract price and we were able to get our own blend. And so I said, the only way we'll get our own blend is it has to be better than what we were using before. And so we ended up getting our own cheese blend and saving 50 cents per pound, which is a big savings across the board. But going back to your question, those three things are incredible at Crust. So I will say the products, the menu, it's award winning. Every single town we go into within a year, you know how magazines will vote best everything in the town. We always become the best pizza within the first year or two. And so the product speaks for itself. The produce, we have all fresh produce. We cut that daily. So all your salads, any produce in your pasta or your pizza, it's fresh. So and on top of that, all the ingredients are premium. Like we're not skimping on our pepperoni or Italian sausage. Like it's the premium quality. And so really when you eat crust for the first time, you can taste the quality. You could taste the freshness. And then on top of that, it's the ambiance of the location. It feels cozy. It feels warm. It feels like a place you could bring your family or friends to catch up. We have the high, tall, the plush booths and then we have the playground area for the kids, for them to play. And so it's just a combination of all those things just made Crust stand out from everyone else. A lot of pizza places are going the Delco model. They're, where you just order and then it's either delivered or you pick it up. There's no
Mm-hmm.
dine in. And I think back whenever I was a kid, Frank, and we loved going to Pizza Hut. That was our jam. And we loved going
Mm-hmm.
eat there once a week. And I was part of the reading program where, hey, you read so many books and you get a free personal pizza, right? And we loved dining in. Like, it was a memory. It was nostalgic memory that, that I'll never forget. And I think about it now, that's what we're doing at Crust. They were keeping that nostalgic feeling of dining in with your family or friends and having a pizza, having a glass, a beer or wine with it, and just enjoying it in a nice atmosphere.
Yeah. Do you see any trend that has changed in terms of a customer likes or what they really want when they go somewhere like at Crust where they're dining in? What has changed over time?
Well, before COVID, we were having 60% dine-in, 40% to go, pick up, delivery. And
Mhm.
then after COVID, during COVID, that flipped to 40-60. And now we're seeing, it's not back to 60-40, but we're seeing 50-50. So 50% people dine in, 50% pick up, delivery to go. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised with that because it tells me that people are still loving the dine-in experience. Like, that's not going anywhere. People
Sure.
want to be able to dine in, and if you think about dining in, uh, pizza is relatively inexpensive versus like other foods that you dine in. It's
True.
expensive. I mean, for a family of five, like, we could go to Crust still today, even with the elevated pricing, and still enjoy an appetizer, drinks, a couple pizzas, and maybe a dessert for $50 versus, it's hard to find a place for 50, to bring your family of five for $50. And so we're able to still achieve that. And so I don't think the dine-in experience, and actually few brands are going back to dining in because they see that it's important.
Wow. What do you think, talking to Mark and Clint, I'm sure you and Nick have talked about this as well, that you guys hope long-term strategy. Is this a legacy brand for you all?
Yes, it is. It's a legacy brand. Yeah, we're definitely in it for the long haul. We're not. I mean, I get emails every week from private equity. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is the time they want to buy us, right? Every
Yep.
conference I go to, everyone wants to meet with me and they want to buy it. But we're not interested, to be honest with you. We rather grow slow than fast, and we rather go slow and right than fast and wrong. I guess that's a good way to put it.
That's a great point. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Carl, tell me why now is a great time for folks to join your brand as a franchisee.
Well, I think it's a great time because we have the proven track record, right? We have
Mhm.
the proven track record. We're successful. We have a great group of a great team that's running it and growing. We're passionate about the brand, so we look for individuals equally passionate. Right? Like, we want franchisees that first love Crust Pizza. Second,
Mhm.
they want to become the local mayor in their community. So they love giving back, because I have the saying, the more you give, the more you receive.
Mhm.
And then third is they have to have capital, because we don't want them to run out of money. So we need to make sure they have capital to be able to do this investment. And if they have
Sure.
those three things, then with our expertise and our brand, if they can execute it in the community and really be involved, then it's a perfect marriage. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a marriage, Frank. I mean, it's a 10-year commitment. And so
Right.
it's real important that we're aligned with the franchisees on both sides of the coin. And so far, we're doing a really good job with that. Of course, we've had a couple franchisees that haven't worked out. And the good news
Sure.
is we put a management agreement in place to be able to get them out and take over their locations, which that happens, right? It's normal. We're not perfect. We're not going to be 10 for 10. But if we can be 8 for 10 or 9 for 10, we're doing great. We're doing
Yeah.
great.
If you look at your very best franchise owners, what do you think are some of the common attributes of your very best franchise owners?
Very best is the owner operators, hands down, the ones that are involved day in, day out. Now it's a requirement that you have to be either owner operator, or
Mhm.
if you're an investor, then you have to have someone that has 10% sweat equity in the business running your location. And
Okay.
so
And what do
that's
they do? And your best ones, what are they doing differently day to day?
community, Frank. They're when little Johnny's baseball team calls you up and says, "Hey, let's do a spirit night," or look, let's join us for this $200 sponsorship. They say yes to them. That's what it's all about. Like making sure that, because think about it. If I'm a franchisee, because I own stores, so I'm an owner. I'm here in Lake Charles. We have a couple of corporate stores here, and if I'm giving back to the community that is supporting me and our business, then whenever we support little Johnny's baseball team for a spirit night and all the parents go support Johnny's team at Crust, then now they think, you know what? Crust, not only is it good food, but they're supporting my son's team.
Right.
And so we're going to support them because they're supporting us. It's the reciprocation principle.
Yeah. I think too many people miss that point. Too many small business owners don't recognize the value of putting in that effort, because that's really what it comes down to. This is not money, it's effort.
It's effort. No, it's effort. And it's not that much effort. The first year requires more effort because you need to build all those relationships. But now,
Right.
I mean, look, I get text message calls every other day like, "Hey, it's time to do this charity again. Will you do a silent auction item?" Absolutely. Will you do a spirit night? Yes. I never say no. And you know what? It pays off in the long run. It really does.
Awesome. That is awesome, Carl. I love it. Okay. If someone was interested in learning more about Crust Pizza, where would they go?
Go to crustfranchise.com. It's our franchise website where you can learn all about what we're doing. And then you could leave a submission on there, and then we would contact you to learn more about who you are, and then also to see if we're aligned to move to the next step, because we do have an approval process that we go through.
All right, great. I got one last question for you. I end every podcast with the franchise tip jar, because the community in franchising is so generous with sharing of advice. So my question for you would be, if you were talking with a friend and giving them a piece of advice because they're looking to become a franchisee of another concept, what would you say to them to make sure that they're making the right decision?
Make sure that you're talking to their franchisees to make sure that they're happy. 100%. You want to make sure that there's happy franchisees that are making money within the system, because if not, then why do you think you're going to be any different?
Great advice. No, it's true.
There it is, man. That's it.
That's true. All right. Well, look, Carl, I think that I consider myself a connoisseur of pizza. I'm Italian and from New York, so I believe that qualifies.
You definitely qualify, Frank.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to either make my way to Louisiana or Texas, or I'm going to have to convince my wife to open a Crust Pizza in Tampa. One of those three things has to happen.
Hey, let's make it happen. Tampa's actually a market we're looking at right now. Actually, I had a conversation with the guy yesterday about Tampa.
Dude, it's a great market.
Yes.
It is a phenomenal market. All right. Well, all right, Carl, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. My mouth is watering. I need pizza, specifically Crust Pizza.
Yes. Well, thanks, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.